Nobody in that courtroom expected what was about to happen, because for the first time in her decades-long career, Judge Judy didn't walk in as the unstoppable authority everyone knew. She walked in accused, targeted, a storm brewing over her reputation, and the person holding the match wasn't a lawyer, wasn't a prosecutor. It was a Karen. Not just any Karen, but a woman who believed she had uncovered a dark secret from Judge Judy's past. A woman who thought she was about to destroy the judge who built her life demanding truth, accountability, and justice. Karen Matthews marched into that courtroom like she owned it, clutching a thick folder against her chest, eyes burning with the self-righteous fire only someone delusional and convinced of their own brilliance could have. She wasn't here seeking justice, no, she was here for glory. She wanted the moment. The viral clip. The headline. Woman exposes Judge Judy's hidden past live in courtroom. She could already see the millions of views, the interview requests, the comments praising her bravery. And for the first time ever, Judge Judy looked human, not weak, not scared, but human, like a fighter walking into the ring alone, with the entire world waiting to see if she would finally fall. Karen smirked when the judge sat down. I hope you're ready, she whispered loudly enough for the microphones to catch. By the time we're done, you won't be wearing that robe again. The audience shifted in their seats. Even the bailiff tensed. Judge Judy didn't glare. She didn't smile. She didn't strike back. She simply breathed in, hands folded gently on the bench, eyes calm, a quiet strength. The kind of strength that isn't loud or flashy, the kind soldiers carry before battle. The strength of someone who has taken hits before and survived them. Proceed, she said softly. And in that moment, you could almost feel the balance of power shift. Karen thought Judy's silence was fear. She had no idea it was patience. Karen slammed her evidence folder on the table dramatically. Your Honor, the public deserves the truth, she declared. Your past is not what you pretend it is. And I have proof. Gasps rippled. Camera operators leaned forward. Even the producers backstage leaned toward their monitors. Judge Judy simply blinked once. Then present it, she replied. Voice steady. No anger, no panic. Not yet. Karen lifted a stack of documents, screenshots, statements, files she claimed came from archives and old court databases. If these documents are made public, she hissed, your legacy is over. For a second, just a second, the courtroom believed her. Because power doesn't always roar. Sometimes power bleeds slowly. Karen expected Judy to crack, to tremble, to shout. Instead, Judge Judy did something far more frightening. She smiled. Not the victorious smile we've seen 1,000 times. A quiet, broken-hearted smile. The smile of someone who knows they have been wrongly accused. Again, someone who has stood against lies before. Someone who has survived character assassination attempts and media storms, but walks into battle anyway. I've been underestimated before, she said softly, looking directly at Karen. It never ended well for the other person. Karen scoffed. That confidence won't save you today. Judge Judy leaned slightly forward, not with dominance but with sorrow, like someone who has seen too much cruelty in the world. Confidence doesn't save people, she replied. Truth does. And that's when something shifted. Karen's certainty flickered. Just for a heartbeat. Because the thing about truth is, it doesn't need to shout to win. Sometimes the loudest person in the room is the most afraid. Sometimes the one they call old or done or finished is the one silently loading the last piece of ammunition. Karen didn't know it yet, but in her desperate attempt to expose Judge Judy, she had actually exposed herself. Some evidence cuts like a knife. But the truth? The truth destroys like fire. And Karen had just struck the match over her own gasoline. This courtroom wasn't about whether Judge Judy had a past. Everyone has a past. This was about whether lies could bury a woman who built her life unburying the truth. And the moment Karen opened her mouth again, the world was about to witness what happens when you challenge a legend. And forget that legends are built in fire, not broken by rumor. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, would you stand up and fight if someone tried to destroy your reputation with lies? And hit subscribe right now, because what happens next? You've never seen Judge Judy like this. And Karen has no idea she just stepped into the biggest courtroom humiliation of her life. Karen's heels clicked like gunshots across the courtroom floor as she strutted toward the plaintiff's stand. clutching her precious folder like it held the key to history. You could see it in her posture, in the smug tilt of her chin. She wasn't just confident. She was convinced she was already victorious. "This," she said loudly, voice slicing through the quiet courtroom, "is the day the world learns who you really are." She didn't say Judge Judy. She said you. Like Judy wasn't deserving of her title anymore. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Even those who didn't particularly like Judge Judy felt the disrespect crawl under their skin. Judy had been tough, sure. Harsh at times, fierce. But she always demanded truth, and she always protected victims. Karen protected only herself. Judge Judy didn't snap. She didn't rise. She didn't defend. Her hands rested quietly on the bench. Her expression calm, too calm. The calm of someone who has been here before, left falsely accused, doubted, underestimated. The calm of someone who has nothing to fear from lies, because truth stands taller and longer than slander could ever reach. "Proceed," Judy repeated softly. Karen opened the folder with dramatic flair, letting the papers flutter loudly as if the sound itself was proof. She pulled out the first sheet. "A criminal misconduct report," she declared proudly, waving it like a victory flag. "From 1989, filed against Judith Scheindlin." A ripple ran through the courtroom. Soft gasps, shuffling feet, nervous breaths. Even the bailiff looked uncertain for a brief second. Judy didn't blink. "Read it," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Karen grinned like a wolf who thought she'd cornered her prey. "It states," she began theatrically, "Judge Judith Scheindlin engaged in coercive legal misconduct, including intimidation of witnesses and suppression of evidence." The audience gasped louder. Karen beamed, feeding off the shock. She believed, truly believed. History was bending in her favor, you see? She continued, raising her voice. She bullied witnesses. She hid evidence. She wasn't a protector of justice. She was a tyrant. A fraud, a disgrace to the bench. Judy didn't flinch. Her eyelids lowered the slightest bit. A quiet sadness passing behind them. A woman used to carrying truth alone. "When did you say this was filed?" Judy asked softly. 1989. Karen declared triumphantly. "Right before you started your television career." "Perfect timing, isn't it?" Judy nodded slowly. "Yes," she murmured. "Perfect timing indeed." Karen slapped another sheet down like a trump card. "And here's another. A sworn affidavit from a former court clerk who said you threatened to end her career if she didn't destroy case notes." She looked around proudly, expecting the crowd to react in horror. Instead, the room quieted. A tension formed, a silent pressure building like something unseen was tightening around Karen's victory fantasy. Judy leaned forward, voice low, almost gentle. "Karen, may I ask a question?" Karen smirked. "Of course. Ask anything. It won't save you." Judy tilted her head slightly. "Are you familiar with sealed judicial archives?" The arrogance drained from Karen's face just a fraction. "Excuse me?" "In New York," Judy continued, "judicial misconduct records, if real, are not released to members of the public. They are not searchable online, not downloadable, and certainly not printable from a forum website." Karen's nostrils flared. "So you're saying these are fake?" Judy didn't answer. She simply looked at her the way a storm looks at a candle. "I am saying," she said softly, "that sealed records do not appear on social media gossip pages." A murmur rippled through the room, doubt creeping in like a cold draft. Karen's smile flickered, but she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She wasn't here to lose. "This isn't gossip," she snapped. "This came from whistleblowers. From insiders, former colleagues, people who saw what you did." Judy's voice dropped to a devastating whisper. "You have never met any of my former colleagues." Karen's jaw twitched. But she doubled down because pride, ego, and desperation are louder than logic. "I don't need to," Karen barked. "I have the truth." Judy studied her silently, the way a surgeon studies a patient moments before removing a tumor. "Truth," Judy repeated, "does not tremble when questioned. Lies do." And for the first time, the first crack appeared in Karen's expression, a tiny flicker of uncertainty. Gone quickly. But there, Judy's voice didn't rise. She didn't defend her legacy with anger. She defended it with quiet conviction. Because the innocent do not shout to be heard. They simply wait, and truth finds its way to the surface. Karen slammed her fists on the table. You think your age and your fame will protect you? Not today. Today everyone sees who you really are, and trust me, the internet will eat this alive. The internet. Clout. Virality. Her true motivations spilled out like venom. Judy's eyes softened, not with pity, but with profound disappointment. You came here, she said quietly, not for justice, but for attention. Karen opened her mouth, ready to fire back, but before she could speak, Judy continued. You believe notoriety makes you powerful, that if you shout loud enough, smear hard enough, the world will listen. You think I'm alone? She placed a hand softly on the bench, not to show authority, but strength. The truth may be quiet, she whispered, but it does not break. Karen's bravado reignited. We'll see about that. Yes, Judy said, eyes suddenly sharp, we will. And in that moment, the energy shifted again. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with the unstoppable heaviness of a verdict already written by fate. Karen didn't realize it yet, but every word she had spoken was building a noose around her own lies. This wasn't just a case anymore. It was a moral collision. Ego versus integrity, noise versus truth, vanity versus legacy. And the storm was only warming up, because while Karen thought she had exposed Judge Judy, she had actually revealed something else. Her evidence wasn't just weak. It was about to dismantle her. Piece by piece, word by word, lie by lie, and Judge Judy wasn't going to crush her with rage. She was going to bury her with facts, patiently, precisely, ruthlessly. Because the most dangerous fighter is not the one who swings first. It's the one who waits for the perfect strike. And Judy? She had been waiting a long time. Silence settled again. Not peaceful silence, but the kind that sits on your chest like weight. Karen didn't feel it, not yet. Karen was still tasting imaginary victory, breathing in that intoxicating air fools breathe right before the fall. She lifted the next page with the confidence of someone who had never been challenged in her life, someone who had always been able to shout louder than the truth. I have here, she proclaimed dramatically, a sworn statement from an officer who claims Judge Judy interfered with a criminal investigation. Her voice shook the sentence like it was a bomb ready to detonate. She waited, head high, expecting panic in the judge's eyes, but Judge Judy simply blinked. No fear, no anger. Just that same exhausted sadness. The expression of someone who has fought too many battles against ignorance to still be shocked by it. And this officer? Judy asked quietly. What precinct? Karen hesitated. Not long, but long enough for suspicion to drip into the room. It's on the paper, she snapped. Read it yourself. Judy nodded slowly, never looking away from her. No, I'd like you to answer. Karen laughed, the brittle laugh of someone clinging to a performance. Why does it matter? The document says, because, Judy interrupted gently. No precinct in Manhattan was ever numbered that way. The audience stilled. A ripple of energy passed through the room. Karen froze. What? That's what the document says. And a forged document, Judy continued, says many things that are convenient, but it does not make them true. That was the first crack. A tiny fissure slicing through Karen's confidence like ice breaking under weight. She tried to cover it with bravado. You're just trying to confuse the court. Judy's expression didn't change. No, I'm trying to give you the opportunity to stop before you drown. Karen rolled her eyes, defiance desperate enough to border on childish. Oh, please. Everyone knows your TV fame protected you. Everyone knows you got special treatment. A low murmur drifted through the courtroom. Judy's reputation wasn't spotless, not because she was corrupt, but because truth hunters always gather enemies. Karen clung to that idea like a lifeline. I even have proof, Karen continued, slapping down another page, that you forced prosecutors to drop charges in exchange for political favor. A gasp. Judy exhaled slowly, like the weight of the world rested in her lungs. Karen, you poor fool, it wasn't an insult. It wasn't anger. It sounded like heartbreak. Do you know what bribes look like? Judy asked. Karen hesitated. Yes, obviously. You would if you had ever worked a real legal case in your life. A tremor crossed Karen's face. Subtle, but present. Judy continued softly, voice low enough to force the room to lean forward and listen. Those papers you are waving. The fonts don't match, the dates don't align, and the signature. It belongs to a judge who passed away 8 years before the document was supposedly created. The courtroom jolted. Karen's face drained. And yet, Judy added, voice tightening just slightly, you thought this would be your coronation. Karen slammed her hands on the podium. I am not lying. The force echoed too loudly, too emotional, too unstable. That's the thing about liars. Somewhere between confidence and collapse, their volume rises and their logic falls. You're attacking me, Karen barked. You're trying to intimidate me because I have you cornered. Cornered? Judy repeated, her tone soft as silk, sharp as wire. Is that what you believe? Karen's voice rose, cracking under the pressure she pretended she didn't feel. I have facts. Judy gently tapped her fingers on the bench. You have fantasies wrapped in printouts from internet rumor boards. Karen shook her head, hair trembling with her. Those posts were from insiders. Whistleblowers. Anonymous, Judy corrected. Unverified, unwitnessed, unauthenticated. You did not uncover lies, you downloaded gossip. Karen's mouth opened and then closed again, like a fish gasping on dry land, caught between fury, humiliation, and the realization that she was being dismantled piece by piece. You can scream truth all you like, Judy said, voice steady, but rumor is not truth, and accusation is not proof. Karen clenched her jaw. You think you can hide behind your name? Behind your legacy? No, Judy replied quietly. Legacy does not defend me. Truth does. That line, soft, unshakable, delivered like a prayer, seemed to echo through the room. It wasn't anger. It was conviction, the kind that has already survived storms. Karen's voice dropped, ugly and venomous. You're just scared because I found what everyone else was afraid to say. Judy looked at her long and hard. Child, I have faced prosecutors, governors, and criminals 3 times your intelligence and 10 times your courage. Do not mistake your noise for power. Boom. But Judy didn't smile, didn't revel. She looked tired. Not defeated, weary from fighting ignorance longer than Karen had been alive. Karen's facade fractured again. Her hand trembled. And then came the paranoia. The hallmark of those who build delusions brick by brick. You're all protecting her, she screamed. You're all scared. You think she's untouchable. Someone whispered from the gallery. She's losing it. Karen heard it, and she broke a little more. You can't silence me, she hissed. I have the internet on my side. I have people ready to expose the rest of you, too. Judy leaned forward, not with force, but with profound sadness. The saddest thing about people who chase fake crusades, she murmured, is that they always believe they are heroes until the moment they realize they were just loud. Karen's chest rose sharply, breathing shaky now, confidence dripping away, leaving desperation behind. She grabbed one final paper. This one proves it. This one is real. This one will finish you. And as she held it up, you could see the fear under her arrogance, the doubt under her rage, the tremor under her voice, because somewhere deep down, even Karen realized she hadn't come with truth. She had come with hope that lies would be enough, and in front of a woman who had built her life crushing deception. Hope is a fragile shield. Judge Judy didn't move, didn't raise her voice, didn't break her calm, because predators roar. But truth? Truth waits, and truth always arrives. Karen thought she was seconds from victory. She didn't realize she was seconds from exposure. This wasn't her moment to shine. It was her moment to shatter. And when the hammer fell, it wouldn't just break her case. It would break the illusion that noise ever beats knowledge, that conspiracy ever beats fact, that ego ever beats integrity. The judge wasn't cornered. She was loading the final round. And Karen had given her every bullet. The courtroom could feel it. The air thickening, tension folding, electricity rising. The truth wasn't just coming. It was already standing in the room. Karen lifted that final sheet like it was a sword, and for a moment she believed she held the power of truth in her shaking hand. It trembled slightly, not from fear but from adrenaline, from the wild confidence of someone who had never been told they were wrong and refused to imagine they could be. She was breathing heavy now, a predator who thought she smelled blood. There, she shouted triumphantly. This document is sworn testimony from a judge who worked with you. He even says you bent justice for political favors. The room buzzed, not belief, not shock, but discomfort. People didn't trust Karen anymore, but they couldn't deny the drama of her claim. It was gripping in the way a car sliding on ice is gripping, horrifying, inevitable, impossible to look away from. Judge Judy didn't look at the paper, didn't reach for it, didn't flinch. Instead, she simply asked, "And the judge who supposedly wrote this, what is his name?" Karen's lips curled into a victorious smirk. "Judge Harold Lemmings," a slow blink. Then another. Judy did not shout, did not laugh, did not even sigh. She simply sat there, a still river right before the dam breaks. "Karen," Judy said softly, "Judge Harold Lemmings never existed." The room froze. Karen blinked, confused. "You don't know every judge in the world. He wasn't some cartoon character. He presided in Manhattan." Judy nodded once, just once. "I know every judge who presided in Manhattan in my era. There was never a Judge Harold Lemmings." Karen's face flushed. "You're lying." Judy finally reached forward, fingertips brushing the bench as she leaned, not in aggression, but certainty. "Do you know why I know he never existed?" Her voice barely above a whisper, but sharp enough to cut silk. No answer. Karen's throat moved, but no sound followed. "Harold Lemmings," Judy continued, "was a fictional judge from a 1990 legal drama pilot that never aired. The script leaked online years ago, a forgotten relic, except apparently one person found it and thought it was real. The air left the courtroom, a vacuum. The kind right before lightning hits the tallest tree." Karen shook her head violently. No, that's not possible. These came from a verified leak. A blog posted them." "Which blog?" Judy asked. Karen opened her mouth and then stopped. That was the mistake. Right there, the hesitation. Because truth does not hesitate, only lies do. Finally she spat. "A private one. You wouldn't know it." Someone in the gallery snorted. The crack widened. Judy's voice remained painfully calm. Calm in the way gravity doesn't argue with someone about to jump. "Karen, you printed your evidence from a fan conspiracy site and a script wiki." Laughter rippled through the room, not loud but growing, like a fire catching wind. Karen slammed her hand on the podium. "Stop, you don't scare me. I'm not intimidated by your reputation. You think you can bully me into silence?" "No," Judy replied. "Fraudsters silence themselves when truth arrives. They just don't realize it's happening." Karen shook, finger stabbing toward the bench. "You ruined lives. You covered up cases. You used the system to climb, and I am the one who exposed it." "You exposed something," Judy said quietly. "Just not me." Karen froze. "Because now," Judy continued, "you will show the court your source. Produce the original file, the original link, the original database. I don't have to—" "Yes," Judy interrupted gently. "You do. It wasn't power. It was inevitability." Karen swallowed hard. I didn't save it." Judy's brow lifted a millimeter. A gesture so subtle yet devastating. "So your entire claim rests on a memory, a rumor and blind ambition." Karen's voice cracked. "I saw it." "You saw what you wanted," Judy answered. "And when a lie becomes convenient, the liar becomes convinced." The bailiff took one step forward, not on command but instinct. The crowd's energy changed, shifting like the tide when the moon turns. Karen's voice was shrinking, threads of panic curling through every syllable. You can't do this." "I'm telling the truth." Judy leaned in slightly. "You're telling a story. And you forgot the first rule of storytelling, and facts." Karen's face twisted. "I'm trying to expose corruption." "You exposed yourself." The words landed like a gavel before one ever struck wood. Karen's breath stuttered, the fight draining as reality seeped in. I didn't mean—" Judy didn't let her finish. Quiet voice, steel underneath. "You weaponized rumor, ambition, and resentment. You didn't come seeking justice. You came seeking a throne built on ashes, and you expected the truth to move aside for you." Karen's knees nearly buckled. The courtroom watched the collapse, not sudden but slow, humiliating, inevitable. The kind that hurts because you realize the ground was never under your feet. Judy wasn't gloating. She wasn't triumphant. She looked heartbroken. "Karen," she whispered, "I have survived courts harsher than this room, trials harder than this case, and enemies more cunning than you. If lies could break me, I would have crumbled long before you." A tear trembled at the corner of Karen's eye. Not sadness, but rage, frustration, shame. "I thought," she began weakly, "that the world rewards noise," Judy finished. "No, the world rewards truth eventually." The word eventually echoed like a verdict. Karen's hands loosened. The pages fluttered to the floor, and in that moment everyone saw it. She never had evidence. She only had ego. And ego without truth is a ticking bomb, and Karen was the explosion. Judy didn't smile. Didn't gloat. She simply folded her hands. "Sit down, Ms. Matthews," she said softly. "Your imagination has testified enough." Karen didn't move. Couldn't. Paralyzed between denial and defeat, truth stood taller than her lies. And truth always, always wins in the end, especially when the one holding it never needed to shout. For several seconds, Karen didn't move. Not a breath, not a blink. She stood trembling. Not like someone who had been challenged, but like someone who had just realized they built their life on sand. And tide was rising fast. Judge Judy didn't relish it. She didn't lean forward triumphantly. She didn't smirk or bask in the unraveling. Instead, she sat there with the patience of someone who'd seen this story too many times. A person so desperate to matter, they mistook destruction for purpose. "Ms. Matthews," Judy finally said, voice calm as still water, "do you know what the hardest job in my life has ever been?" Karen didn't respond. She couldn't. The oxygen in her lungs felt counterfeit now, like everything else she'd touched. "It wasn't becoming a judge," Judy continued. "It wasn't handling criminals. It wasn't navigating television or the public eye." Her fingers rested lightly atop the bench. Not clenched, not defensive, just steadily grounded. "The hardest job was keeping my character intact when people like you tried to bend reality around their bitterness." Karen's lips quivered. I wasn't bitter. I was exposing you." "No," Judy said softly. "You were trying to be someone, and instead of earning respect, you tried to steal it." Karen shook her head, but it was weak, like her body disagreed with her denial. "I was doing the right thing." Judy tilted her head. "For who? For justice or for attention?" The silence answered before Karen could. For the first time, the courtroom didn't see a warrior or a whistleblower or some grand truth-teller. They saw her as she truly was, someone who worshipped the idea of being remembered, but never learned how to be honest enough to deserve it. Judy continued, voice straight, unbroken, unwavering. "You accuse me of hiding my past. But the truth, Karen, it was never my past that needed scrutiny." She paused, deliberately, letting the words hang like frost in the air. "It was yours." A collective inhale swept the room. Slow, sharp, stunned, Karen's face drained. What are you talking about? You don't know anything about me." "On the contrary," Judy replied, "I know more than you think." She opened a file, quietly, without theatrics. She didn't slam it like Karen had. She didn't announce it. She simply turned a page. "When your accusations were brought to my chambers last month, I did what any judge would do. I reviewed your complaint. And your history." Karen's knees softened. "My history? A judge must always consider credibility," Judy said gently. "So yes, I looked." Karen's voice cracked. "You had no right. I had every obligation. It was firm, final, not shouted, etched in iron. You accused a sitting judge of corruption. That warrants review, even if the accuser is misinformed." Karen swallowed, voice barely air. "You dug up my life?" Judy shook her head. "No, I didn't need to. You buried yourself long before you walked in here." The audience shifted, unease melting into pity, pity into realization. Judy turned another page. 3 prior complaints filed against employers accusing them of conspiracies when they questioned your work. Karen shook her head violently. "Those were real." "I was targeted," Judy kept going, uninterrupted. 2 online harassment reports filed by acquaintances you believed betrayed you." "That's a lie." "And a forum history," Judy continued, "of participation in conspiracy communities, specifically ones dedicated to discrediting legal officials, including me." Karen's jaw fell. "You're stalking me." "No," Judy whispered. "I am revealing the pattern you hoped no one would see." Karen's breath came fast and ragged, panic shredding through the last of her bravado. You can't judge me for defending myself in the past. Defending? Judy lifted her brow. Or retaliating whenever life didn't applaud you. Karen's chest heaved. People need to know when powerful people abuse their position. Yes, Judy agreed. They do. Then softly, but you cannot fight injustice by inventing your own. It landed like a hammer. Karen's voice, once booming, now shrank into a broken whisper. I didn't invent anything. I was trying to fight something bigger than me. Judy's eyes softened, pity in their lines. No, you were trying to feel bigger than you are. Karen flinched like she'd been struck. This isn't about truth, Judy continued. This is about ego starving for validation. About resentment toward a world that didn't hand you applause. Karen's eyes filled. You think I'm the villain? Judy didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice wasn't harsh. It was heavy with human understanding. I think you are someone who mistook attention for justice. And outrage for courage. Tears slipped free, unwilling, humiliating. Karen whispered, shaking. I just wanted someone to finally listen. Judy nodded slowly. Then you should have spoken truth, not noise. Karen trembled, fists useless at her sides. You don't know what it's like to feel invisible. Judy's reply came like a soft blade. Everyone is invisible until they stand on something real. And there it was. The difference. Between legacy and delusion, between truth and theatrics, between Judy, forged in decades of real battles, and Karen, who built a crusade out of shadows. Karen's voice cracked like breaking glass. So this is it? You're going to ruin me? Judy shook her head again, slowly, sincerely. I don't ruin people. They ruin themselves when they choose lies over reality. But I didn't mean... It does not matter what you meant, Judy said simply. It matters what you did. Karen collapsed into her chair, breath shuddering, shoulders shaking. The courtroom didn't celebrate. No cheers, no applause. Just heavy, empathetic silence. Because humiliation earned through ego doesn't thrill. It sobers. Judy's voice softened once more. Karen, you could have been heard. But you chose spectacle. And spectacle collapses without truth. Karen lifted her eyes, hollow, defeated. The woman who came to bury someone now drowning in her own dirt. And Judy spoke the quiet truth that finished it. This courtroom is not a stage. And your pain, whatever it is not an excuse to set fire to people simply because they stand where you wish you were. Karen's lip trembled. I didn't want to hurt anyone. But you did, Judy answered. And now the truth has to stand. A tear rolled down Karen's cheek. She didn't wipe it. She didn't defend. She had nothing left to defend with. Judy sat back, voice soft as closing prayer. Integrity is not fame. Truth is not clout, and justice is not a ladder for the bitter to climb. Karen bowed her head, not in obedience but defeat. And the courtroom finally understood. This wasn't a battle of power. It was a battle of character, and character had just won. And the courtroom finally understood. This wasn't a battle of power. It was a battle of character, and character had just won. For a moment, silence ruled, not victory, not celebration, just truth settling into every corner of the room like light breaking through a storm. And if you're watching right now thinking, finally, truth won over drama, then pause and ask yourself, how many times in life do people like Karen try to destroy others? Not because they're right, but because they can't stand someone who earned what they never could? If you believe lies should never win over honor, comment truth always wins right now. And like this video right now if you think false accusers deserve consequences, because what happens next? You're about to witness karma in its sharpest form. Judge Judy let the silence ripen until even Karen's breathing sounded loud. No one moved. No one coughed. It felt like the room itself was waiting to be told what it had just witnessed. Ms. Matthews, Judy said at last. Her voice measured. This proceeding asked one question. Did you present credible, verifiable evidence of misconduct? The answer is no. Karen flinched but didn't speak. You did not bring facts, Judy continued. You brought rumor. You did not bring records. You brought printouts. You did not bring witnesses. You brought ghosts. She paused, letting each contrast land like a stone in still water. Justice cannot be asked to kneel to your imagination. Karen's lips trembled. I thought. Judy lifted a hand gently. You thought outrage could substitute for proof. You thought volume could conquer verification. You thought a crowd could crown you correct. Her gaze softened. Not indulgent, not cruel, simply honest. That is not how truth works. The bench seemed to grow taller beneath her, not because she raised her voice, but because she never had to. Accordingly, your claims are dismissed with prejudice. A soft gasp rippled across the gallery. Karen swayed, then steadied, pride clinging to her like a wet coat. Judy wasn't finished. Further, this court refers your filings to the appropriate authorities for review of potential perjury and harassment, along with the defamatory statements you circulated. She shifted the file. You will also compensate for administrative costs and reasonable fees incurred by these false allegations. An order will follow. Karen's whisper grated out, raw as a scraped throat. You're ruining me. Judy shook her head. No. You attempted to ruin someone else and discovered how heavy truth feels when it finally lands. The line struck deeper than any punishment. Karen stared at the floor as if it had just tilted. Judy turned from condemnation to instruction, an old habit, etched by years of repairing harm after delivering verdicts. Ms. Matthews, I will say this plainly so there's no confusion. The world is full of people who are invisible until they light fires. They burn reputations to keep their hands warm, then act surprised when the smoke follows them home. If you want to be seen, do something worth seeing. Karen had no reply. There was nothing left to swing. The clerk began reading the formal language, but the words became a distant hum under the human reality in the room. One woman who mistook noise for moral force. Another woman who'd carried truth so long it no longer needed armor. When the clerk finished, Judy looked to the gallery, a glance that somehow included the audience at home. The people online, the critics, the fans, the bored and the furious alike. Do not confuse skepticism with cruelty, she said quietly. Ask questions. Demand proof. But do not build a life on allegations you cannot hold up in daylight. She closed the file. This court stands adjourned. The gavel didn't thunder. It didn't need to. It tapped once. Small sound, enormous meaning. And the spell broke. Karen tried to move and couldn't. Shame is heavier than concrete when it finally hardens. She reached for the fallen pages, then let them lie. They weren't evidence. They were confetti from a parade that never existed. As people stood, the murmurs began. Not gleeful, not cruel. Just the honest exhale of witnesses returning to oxygen. A few looked at Karen with pity. Most didn't look at all. That is a punishment no law can write. When a crowd that once felt like fuel suddenly feels like a mirror. Outside the courtroom, the echo grew legs. Clips of the contradictions spread first. The fictional judge name, the mismatched signatures, the forum histories. No dramatic music, no edits needed. Just side-by-side frames where fact stood next to fiction and didn't move an inch. The algorithm didn't choose sides. It simply carried the only story that held. Some tried briefly to defend Karen. But there is a difference between defending a person and defending a lie. The first can be noble. The second is quicksand. They sank fast. An old classmate posted a message. She always wanted to be the one who knew something no one else did. A former supervisor wrote, "When we asked for proof, she called us corrupt." A friend, perhaps a real one, typed softly, "I hope she finds a way to tell the truth to herself before she tries again." Meanwhile, the clip of Judy's quiet line, "Truth may be quiet, but it does not break," escaped its original context and became a sentence people texted to themselves after hard days. It wasn't a slogan. It fit too many rooms to be a slogan. Hospital waiting rooms, classrooms after gossip storms, kitchen tables after accusations burned through a family thread. Sometimes a verdict becomes more than legal. Sometimes it becomes a tool people keep in their pocket for when the world gets loud. As for Karen, accountability kept arriving, not as a wave, but as a tide, slow, certain, impossible to argue with. A notice, a closed account, a journalist calling, this time not to praise but to confirm. The very spotlight she chased now showed fingerprints she couldn't wipe off. She learned a punishing truth. When you try to climb on someone else's shoulders by shouting liar, you may find yourself alone on a very tall, very narrow platform with nowhere to go but down. None of this made Judy triumphant. She did not glow. She did not pose. She went to her chambers, put the file away, and, for a quiet second, let the fatigue reach her face. Being doubted does not get easier with age. It simply stops being new. She poured water, sat, and allowed herself a single breath of the sort of sorrow only people who love the truth ever feel. Not sadness that they were attacked, but sadness that such attacks are so common, so easy, so tempting for the hungry and the unseen. Then she stood, straightened, and walked out with the same quiet that had carried her in. Underdogs don't stay underdogs when the bell rings. They simply keep their feet moving when the loud fighters run out of breath. In the days that followed, something subtle shifted. Not in headlines, they come and go, but in conversations. People repeated the difference Judy drew between skepticism and cruelty. Teachers used the case to explain primary sources. A mother told her daughter, "Ask for receipts, not retweets." A son told his father, "We don't share it if we can't prove it." Little repairs, unremarkable, ordinary, stitch themselves across ordinary lives. That is what true rulings do. They don't just end a case. They teach the room what a case is, and for Karen, the world did not end. That would have been too simple. Instead, it kept going without her applause, insisting that she learn the only lesson that might save her. Attention is not oxygen. You can live without it. You cannot live well without honesty. Back in the courtroom, the bench sat empty, the wood warm where a hand had rested through storms. A nameplate glinted in light that had nothing to prove. This, after all, was the quiet victory. Not that a woman had won, but that a standard had. Not that noise lost, but that it learned what it was. Truth did not dance, it held. And in a noisy century, holding is the bravest thing anything can do. Days passed, then weeks. And like all storms, noise faded. But consequences, those stayed. Not loud, not cruel, just present, like shadows that follow even when light returns. Karen walked through grocery stores and felt eyes linger. Not hatred, recognition. The worst kind. People didn't see a whistleblower. They saw the woman who confused attention for truth, anger for justice, conspiracy for purpose. They saw someone who burned her credibility to feel powerful for one moment. There were no reporters chasing her now. No cameras. No interviews. Just silence. The kind that wraps around a person and forces them to meet themselves. She deleted her truth pages, took down her exposing corruption blog, stopped posting dramatic monologues accusing invisible enemies, because once the world hears you scream and then watches the truth stand without raising its voice, screaming loses its power. One afternoon, she paused outside a small bookstore where a TV in the window replayed a clip. Not her meltdown, not her lies, but Judge Judy speaking at a law school panel days later. Calm, composed, underdog no more, but victor without gloating. A student asked, "How do you handle people who attack your integrity?" Judy had smiled, not smug, not victorious, just tired and wise. You don't fight rumor by screaming back. You don't chase every lie. You stand still and let truth catch up. The audience erupted, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. Karen stood on the sidewalk frozen because those words weren't aimed at the crowd. They were a mirror pointed at her soul. For the first time, she truly saw what she had done. She had tried to break someone's name because she couldn't build her own. She had mistaken chaos for impact. She had confused attention with significance, and the world didn't hate her for it. Worse, it had simply outgrown her. She sat on a bench, fingers trembling, and whispered to nobody. "I just wanted someone to listen." Then the reply came back to her like an echo she had been avoiding all her life. People listen to truth. People tolerate noise. People ignore delusion. She wasn't hated, she was ignored. And that, she realized, was the real punishment. Meanwhile, Judge Judy returned to her life. She didn't celebrate Karen's downfall. She didn't post quotes or retweet praise. She simply kept working, kept serving, kept standing for something bigger than herself. Because legacy isn't built in one case, one episode, or one attack. It's built in little choices stacked across decades. Truth wins not because it shouts, but because it survives. And sometimes, the loudest defeat is watching the quiet win. The world didn't remember Karen's accusations. It remembered Judy's composure. The internet didn't replay Karen's claims. It replayed Judy's grace. And Karen's final lesson came not through punishment but perspective. You cannot tear down someone who built their life on something real. You can only tear down yourself trying. So the story didn't end with bars or handcuffs or vengeance. It ended with stillness and the kind that forces reflection, the kind that forces growth. If a person chooses to grow, and in that final quiet, one truth remained unshaken. Some people chase history. Others make it. Judge Judy didn't need to fight to win. She simply was, and that was enough. If you believe truth doesn't need to scream to win, comment "Truth stands below." Hit subscribe so you never miss a story where lies fall and real character rises. And to anyone watching this who's ever been attacked by jealousy, rumor, or bitterness, remember, you don't defeat noise by shouting. You defeat it by standing, because noise fades, ego collapses. But integrity? Integrity echoes longer than any lie ever could.